Historic and unexpected. The surprise announcement sending bells ringing across the world as the first American Pope in history greeted his followers. The Archbishop of Seattle, Paul Etienne, hailing the new pontiff's choice of name, Leo XIV, as a clear sign of how he will lead.
What Pope Leo is now signaling by the choice of his name is that the Church's social doctrine is going to be a key component of this pontificate. And it also signals that much of the vision and many of the priorities of Francis will be continued in some fashion.
So what does this historic moment mean for Catholicism around the world and here in the Northwest? Archbishop Etienne sat down with us earlier this week for his first in-depth television interview in 6 years. Tonight he goes on the record to talk about faith, the challenges ahead, and the Church's mission to bring people together.
I was born into Catholicism. I have it in my DNA. Helping people come to their own personal encounter with Christ, to come to their own deeper understanding of God's love for them, of God's will for them. That's the gospel I preach. And that's what gives life to my ministry.
How do you see the election of a new pope shaping the direction of the Catholic Church globally?
Pope Francis, who is known as the Pope of Surprises, this will be one of his last surprises. We want a man of prayer, a man of holiness, a man of the capacity to be in this world stage and to have a credible moral voice. That's what Pope Francis was known for.
And also for his progressive reforms. Do you expect the next pope will carry on those ideals?
Pope Francis didn't so much change the teachings of the Church as much as he stretched our imaginations and, yes, comfort zones of how we are called to live our faith in the world today.
At a time when politically things are so polarized, do you feel that that's a factor in drawing people in?
There was a quote from Pope John Paul II that said, affective collegiality leads to effective collegiality, which basically means you've got to build basic human relationships before you have the difficult conversations to resolve your differences. Our world needs to recover this willingness to respect one another as a brother and sister with equal dignity, and that we can have meaningful conversations about things we disagree with that can lead to very good solutions.
I want to talk about the new law that's on the books in our state. It's going to require clergy, even in confession, to report child neglect and abuse. And I know you've condemned this.
The Church is already doing everything we can, and have been for the past several decades, to respond to victim survivors when they come to us. We've had policies on our books for decades requiring our priests to report abuse when they come to knowledge of it, except within the seal of the sacrament of confession.
Historically, the Church has struggled with this issue of child sex abuse. Tens of thousands of children reportedly have been abused within the Catholic Church.
Yes.
And so how and why should people trust that the Church will act to defend against the abuse of children?
I'm glad you used the word historically, because this is a historical moment in the life of the Church for which we are ashamed. I mean, they weren't just sins, they were crimes committed against young people. And we can't apologize for that enough. But I think to answer the question, we now have decades of hard work in place. We can point to specific improvements that have been made in recent decades. I would go so far as to say that our institutions are some of the safest places for young people in our society today.
At the end of the day, you want your clergy to follow God, not man. The division of church and state is also a factor, and confession is sacred.
Confession is definitely sacred. We want our people to continue to have trust and confidence in the sacrament of reconciliation, better known as confession. It's between the penitent and God. Our church law, canon law, also says that if a priest violates that seal, he's automatically excommunicated from the church. Our priests have told me, Archbishop, I'll go to prison before I allow the state to coerce any such information from me. And I think all of our priests feel that way.
What do you think the church is doing right or could be doing more of to welcome and minister to the LGBTQ plus community?
I think there's sensitivities that we don't want to use labels. We just want people to know you're welcome because you're a child of God.
What role do you see looking ahead for women? What do you envision for women in church leadership or in the ministry?
We need more women engaged in the ministries of the church. We need more women engaged in the decision-making of the church and the governance of the church. And we seek to do that in a way that doesn't diminish the role of the hierarchy, but elevates the role of the baptized.
In our lifetime, will we see a female become a priest in the Catholic Church?
I doubt it. Just with where the stage of conversation is around the ordination of women as deacons, I think it's a whole nother thing to get to ordaining women as priests in the Catholic tradition.
What is your message to young people?
I think our young people are looking for meaning. We are here to bring the life of the risen Christ into the world. We are here to share the gospel that he came into the world to live and to preach. And those that are willing to have that conversation with us, to allow us to bring that light of Christ into their world and into whatever darkness they're walking in, that's why we're here, and we welcome them with open arms.